town has a ghost story that's been passed down through the generations. But what if those legends were true? My name is Miranda Young, and I'm the Ghost Biker.
Good evening, everyone, and happy Wednesday. We're here. We've got some big things going on at the historic Scott County Jail leading up this weekend that we're going to be talking about. And because of that, I'm having to do the show tonight on a special night. So thank you all so much that, received the notification of tonight's special surprise broadcast and are joining us here. So it's going to be a good fun time. We love to dive into each of the episodes here during the month of October, talk about the things that we did, talk about the things that are the techniques we use, the tools, talk about the location. A lot of great things to talk about with this season because we're in the middle of season 5. We've got 2 more episodes left, and a lot of surprises and a lot of cool things going on. So just want to say hello to the people over here in the chat room. Hello, Miss Janet, Susan, Mitchell. Thank you guys so much. I saw a lot of you guys in the chat room last night. So, we're going to be talking about a few things that we talked about in the chat room. So, definitely got a full show tonight. I'm going to go ahead and bring my special guest on tonight. I always love these behind the screen shows whenever I can have a special guest on to talk. And so tonight's guest is definitely no stranger to you all over here in the chat room, and then also that follow us at the jail. So I'm going to go ahead without further ado bring on my friend, my business partner, and my co-investigator on some investigations, Miss Dr. Christy Sumner from Soul Sisters Paranormal.
Hey, Miranda.
Hey, so I figured, we got a little bit of business to cover before we get to tonight's episode, and I thought, go ahead and bring you on since you're there at the jail.
Here I am.
Talk a little bit about, some of the different things we've got going on and why we're here on a Wednesday night.
Well, we're here on a Wednesday night because tomorrow night we've actually got a dress rehearsal for our lantern tour, which is going to be held Friday and Saturday night. And we're really excited about this. We really try to do things that encompass the community. So what we've done is we partnered with the drama class from Oneida High School under the leadership of Marcus Birchfield. And so we've got the actors who will be here, and they will be acting out characters from the jail's past. And so we've different things like Richard Ellis. You've heard us talk about him and some of the other characters that either worked here, lived here, died here. They're going to be acted out by these great actors from Oneida High School. So basically, you're going to have a guide that takes you through with a lantern, and we're going to have different stops along the way. And these actors are going to have a monologue that really describes who they are and why they're important to the jail. So we are super excited about this partnership. If you're in the East Tennessee area, we still have tickets available. So go to our website and check it out.
Yeah, as of right now, the only way to purchase tickets is online, but I think we're going to actually open that up to being able to purchase some at the door. I mean, it'll obviously be a limited amount that we're allowed to do there at the door just because, of the limited capacity and stuff that we have in the limited time. And I got to say, one of the things that I think is the most cool about this is that these characters are based on the history. The monologues were written based on the newspapers and such from the times whenever they were there at the jail.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So what we did is we took those newspaper articles and wrote a very interesting script for each of these actors, and each one is about 2 to 2.5 minutes long. And so like I said, you go to these different stops and they'll tell you that history and really kind of in that first person narrative is how we wrote it. And I'm really excited about it. I think it's a great way for the community to connect to the building and its history. And it's a great way for these students to really learn about Scott County's past. So each of them really did a deep dive, a character analysis of the character that they're playing. And I'm really excited. I'm really excited about the dress rehearsal tomorrow. So we have some special guests that will be in the audience that will be coming through. And so how it's going to happen is we're going to take groups of 6. Every 8 minutes, another group of 6 will come through and cycle through the jail. So the experience itself is going to last between 30 and 35 minutes as you go through the jail. So again, very excited about this. And this is something that I think we're going to plan to do every year.
Yeah. That first year's always a building year, but to be able
I'm
to
nervous wreck.
Yeah. Well, try having all these multiple events in a row.
Oh, I know.
It's a lot, but we love October, and with the release of the season, with these different events that we're able to do, and yes, Mitchell, we wish you could be there as well. It's like I said, I'm extremely excited about it, and think that the community is too. I know the drama club is very excited, and I should have pulled up the picture of the drama club on there. Actually, bear with me one second, and I'm going to do that just because I'm really proud of these kids and what they've put into this. So talk for a second while I find this.
and I'm really proud of them as well. Yeah, they've had the script for about 3 or 4 weeks now. And each Marcus, the gentleman who's in charge, said that they're very excited. We have not had the opportunity to actually see them in a dress rehearsal type of a situation yet. And so they're coming tomorrow, and they're going to be here and go through, and there they are. So very excited to have these young kids in the jail and really highlight them and their talents. So thank you to the Oneida High School drama class.
Yeah, thank you to the drama class, and thank you to everyone that has purchased tickets to this, because this is, again, this is quite a unique opportunity, and it's something different than your typical haunted house that, and not throwing off on that, because we all love haunts and haunted attractions, but this combines the history with a little bit. I mean, a couple of the characters are some of the characters that a few of our paranormal investigators have, not to really give that away, but that they've
have experienced,
been able to experience, and that we've actually been able to validate through history.
Exactly.
So, let me get back to where I was on my screen with because there's a few more pictures and stuff that I do want to share here.
You've been a busy girl over the last few weeks.
I have. So, thank you again. Thank you to everyone that has purchased a ticket. I see a few of you here in the comments that, it's going to be coming this weekend. Susan, we saw the ticket purchase come through, so we're looking forward to seeing you and meeting the rest of your family that's going to be coming. So before we get into tonight's episode, I do want to take a few minutes and say a huge thank you to Wildcat Harley Davidson, Mr. Chris Minton, who is their marketing director there, as well as Ms. Kelly Burton, who is I believe the executive director there of the London Laurel Tourism Commission in Kentucky. These folks were incredible. This weekend was amazing. We had the Hogs and Haunts Ghost Biker Explorations weekend, and what a full weekend it was. On Friday night, we had a meet and greet there at Harley Davidson, and then on Saturday, motorcycle ride that took place, stopped at 4 different stops. We shared really cool stories about the haunts of Wildcat Battlefield and about Cumberland Falls up there, and then also had an amazing lunch at the Sanders Cafe. Just want to take just a few minutes and share just a few pictures. There's actually going to be a video coming a little bit later this week that kind of highlights this ride, because if you didn't join us on this ride, you totally missed out, because this is something totally different than what we've done at any of the other Harley events. And it couldn't have been possible without the help and the partnership of Harley and the London Laurel Tourism Commission, because Kelly hooked us up with some amazing locations. And so these were the folks who did the ride with us. And it was such a special treat, because we did have to change the date. Originally, it was going to be the first of the month. And you know how that is. It's hard to get schedules to link up, but the heavens aligned, and they were having the battlefield there, the reenactment. there at Wildcat Battlefield. We got to watch the soldiers and these amazing reenactors and learn history about the battlefield. What was really quite awesome, and will be, and apparently I don't have it in this group of pictures, but what was really awesome about this whole thing was that we met an individual who he's a general there, and he came right up to us and shared some of the stories about what was some of the experiences that he had there at the battlefield and along his travels of being a reenactor. Here's the beautiful Cumberland Falls. And this is only one of 2 places in the world that you can actually see a moonbow. So I hope to go back. That's actually a bucket list place of mine. And there's some really great stories that are associated, a lot of great hauntings that are associated with the falls itself and with the park that we were all able to get together and talk about. And so we did get to visit those sites. It's great to share those stories, but to actually be able to be in those sites and see where some of this stuff took place, it's just amazing to experience. And then, of course, the paranormal investigation that night. We didn't end up selling out, but we did have a great crowd. All of the proceeds raised went to Shop with a Cop. And so I've actually got links. So if anybody wants to donate that couldn't attend the event, I'm going to be posting those links when I post the video. And actually, what a great testimony here. We've got Ashley Wright, who was there, said they had a great time. Thank you so much for attending and for your kind words. Can't wait for you guys to come here to the Scott County Jail. And then, of course, Miss Heather Swain, she was also there. So thank you, guys. I can't wait to hear what evidence we captured on your recorders, because we had some pretty cool things happen at this location. And we investigated the Levi Jackson Wilderness Road Mountain Life Park. So it's kind of a mouthful, but we investigated from 8 until 1, and we had some things happen that I definitely couldn't explain. So, and then last but not least, let me back out of that picture. Just want to mention the cave. I was actually pretty blown away by the cave tour that we had. And this was at the Great Saltpeter Cave there in Kentucky. And, just the history being inside of this location. There's some great stories behind it. And this was a free tour. They did accept donations, because that's also how this is ran. So we're hoping to be able to do this again next year, and maybe dive in just a little bit deeper with some of the things that, this cave and a lot of the locations there at London, Kentucky has to offer. So thank you for letting me share all that, Dr.
So next year I need a volunteer to run the jail next year so I can go on this trip, because I was honestly really bummed that I could not make it, but duty calls here at the jail. But next year we're either closing or I need a volunteer.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. We're already talking about next year, and we are going to make this in London, Kentucky, a yearly event. And then we're also going to look as far as, like I said, I was blown away, and so Kelly being hands-on, and I think that getting other tourism commissions involved, or Chamber of Commerce, along with, to really pick up on that travel aspect and get some of these other businesses in, I think that we can create a really unique event. So we're hoping to do that in a couple other locations around the country coming up next year as well. So
awesome. All right, Janet and Dee Dee, you guys are in.
Yeah, come on. I will let you all know. And so we'll give you advance notice to get in here. So again, this past week's episode, thank you, Dr. Sumner, for letting me know about this place and collaborating with me on this.
Yeah, this, when you hear me talk on podcasts, when people ask what is the either creepiest or the most active place you've been to, since we've done that investigation, that is my answer. Obviously, the historic Scott County Jail has now risen in the list since we acquired this, but the old Gilchrist County Jail that night was absolutely phenomenal. And really, this was really the second time you and I had actually met, and you had planned a trip down to Florida. It was a whirlwind trip. You were down there for a week, and we had found different locations to investigate. And this one was really going to be it was the last night you were there, and it was really going to be our quote unquote throwaway investigation, right? It was going to be something interesting. We had some time that night, and when we got there and saw the size, we weren't really expecting that much, but this place is amazing.
It truly is, because we really stacked that week, and
We did.
I think there
did.
was a total of like 4
Four
investigations that we did. 3 of them were back to back,
nights, yeah.
and yeah, back to back nights. And when you stay in these locations, and plus there was driving distance in between. This
Mhm.
one was technically on my way back from Florida. And so it was a couple hours up the road from where we had investigated the night before. And I'm gonna admit, I was extremely tired
I know you were,
leading
yeah.
up to this. And then it's like, but I knew, because I said this whenever we got there. It's like, this place is going to be a sleeper, and
Yeah, you did.
probably going to be even more off the chain than the other places. I mean, we had the St. Augustine Lighthouse that week. We had Ma
Ma
Barker
Barker,
House.
the Lakeside Inn, yeah.
We did the Lakeside Inn, yeah. A lot
Mount Dora.
of great places, a lot of highly active places.
Yeah, yeah, and then, like I said, this was just one that I knew it was on your route on the way out, and, it's Trenton is about an hour's west of Gainesville, Florida. So you take the highway over, from I-75, and it's a straight shot right into Trenton. And, Gilchrist County, it's the smallest county in Florida. It's the last county that was formed in Florida. It was actually formed by taking part of Alachua County, and that's how that county came to be. So I knew it was on your route home, and we booked it, and I said, let's just give this a try, because you did have that one last night. And like I said, I cannot speak highly enough about the Gilchrist County Jail.
Yeah, and Eileen, correct? The lady
Arlene Hale.
yes, that used to own it. Just a wonderful, I know it's changed ownership now, and Henry seems to be, a wonderful individual as well. But I know Arlene, had a lot of pride and care in the location.
She really did, and she was very proud of this location. And again, it was one of those things where you kind of it was hard for us to find, right? GPS
Yeah.
doesn't take you right to it. We had to kind of circle. I'm like, I know it's right here
Kind
somewhere.
of like our jail.
Well, exactly. And so when we pulled up to it, she was very welcoming. She's just a great woman, she and her team. And to your point, it has been sold, and Henry Lee ended up buying it. Have not had the opportunity to meet him in person, but I know he's done a lot of work with it, and I know he is just as proud to have the ownership of that jail as Arlene was.
Absolutely. And so I'm going to go ahead and just kind of run this in the background. I'm going to do like we've done for the last 3 weeks, or excuse me, the last 2 weeks, where essentially this just kind of plays its way through. Certain things we may play with the volume. Otherwise, we're just going to kind of talk our way through it here. Let me go ahead and turn that volume off, get it started.
But the crazy thing was, if you haven't experienced Florida in July, it's hot. I mean, you've got hell right here, and Florida's right about here in July. And so that's what it was that night. It was extremely hot. And the jail, it's 2 stories. It has just a few cells, and then the small jailer's cottage in the back that's connected via a doorway. And there's no windows. All the windows had been busted out, because once the jail closed in 1968, it sat vacant, right? It's in an area that it's not the greatest location. So there is some distressed areas around it. And after it closed, it really was used as an area for drug activity, for gang activity. And so there was a gentleman killed there while he was completing a drug transaction in the early 2000s. That was Mr. Black that we communicated with. And so it just going up to start the investigation, we already had those things kind of working against us. We had the bugs, we had the heat, we had the area itself. And so that's why Arlene said, when you go into this jail and you're there, because it was just the two of us, make sure you have your guns with you at all times. How she asked it, she said, "Do you carry?" We're like, "Yeah, we both carry." She said, "I highly recommend you have your guns with you at all times while you're inside this jail." And so we did.
And she did check our permits.
She did. She checked our permits.
Yeah, she checked the permits. And, it was, and I've said this on my podcast. I've said this on other shows too. For me, I don't tend to have as much success in locations when it's hot. And I really didn't think about it at this time because this investigation, it was filmed in 2019. And so I hadn't, I'd investigated a lot, but I hadn't really investigated as much as I have now. So I couldn't make that correlation. But I don't think Florida is ever not hot. So I think that
we did that one day in December.
That's true. I don't know if, for instance, maybe it was the fact that, like, Hellsbar Dam is the example that I use. I've investigated it when it's bone chilling cold and you're on the water. And I've done it in the heat. I also did Waverly Hills in the cooler weather, and then several different locations in the heat. And it really did change depending on the location. Maybe it's the spirits in these more seasonal places where they have drastic season changes more so than before. Maybe that was the case, but normally I don't have that much luck. But I have to totally agree with you that this particular location is one that, I mean, everything seemed to work together in tandem, and tools were corroborating other tools. Sorry for the unflattering shot there, but it's a motorcycle shot in Florida.
So as you're seeing some of the scenes here during her intro, it was very gritty. Now Henry Lee, since he has taken it over, he's done a great job cleaning this up. All the ivy is now off the building. All of that, you can now see the building from behind this fence. So it looks a lot different now. But when we were there, very rustic, very primitive, literally just the walls were standing, and you can see that it's a very, very gritty location. And just behind this fence is those distressed areas that are also vacant. You've got some vacant trailers and such back there. And so I'll admit, when we rolled up on it, I was a little nervous, and you can kind of see behind you there just how gritty it really was. But to your point, once we started deploying everything, this is the one investigation where I can really say, if we can call it a pure investigation or a perfect investigation, this was the one where we were feeling things. You were getting touched. The REM pods were going off. The K2s were going off. The Ovilus was going off. The rods were going off. The SLS camera, we captured audio voices on the recorders, and we were seeing and capturing shadow figures. Everything was validating every other piece of equipment that we had that night, and that's what makes this place so amazing.
And that's the other point too, the fact, and I see some questions coming through, so keep those coming when we get to a break here in the conversation. I'll definitely pull those up. But you see a lot of the first part of the investigation is in the daylight, because of the area that we were in. They did have us, I think we were there, from earlier in the evening, and not so much at night. I think we had to be out of there by 1 o'clock. It was for that reason. And, I'm always interested in the atmosphere, and do these things play a part? So that's why you do see in some of these that, it is kind of a half day investigation for at least my episode. And that temperature is definitely,
I'd say it's more like 115 inside there. It was stifling. And there was no movement. There's no wind movement or anything, which is obviously another thing that we take into account. There was zero breeze coming through here. Again, you've got all the ivy and stuff around it anyway. So definitely hot, definitely humid, definitely sticky. And the way you're filming here, there were times where Miranda has her camera stationary and I'm in another cell, an adjacent cell. But you guys have to know that this is a very, very small location. There's this cell that we're in. When you leave this door, there's 4 cells across the hall, and there's one right behind this wall where she's at, and that's it. That's the top
Mhm.
floor. So very tiny location. And so
Not
the
as small
way
as Fentress County.
no, Fentress County, that's a room. Um, that's a room. Like 3 Fentress counties can fit in this one.
Yeah.
But that's the reason why she's filming like this, rather than me hold the camera. She just sets it down because we're so tight in there. I'm actually sitting out in the hallway right now, or
Yeah,
the upstairs foyer.
and so Soul Sisters did put out their video, and so, which this is something I wanna address at a little point, a little bit later on in the, episode here, but, she did put theirs out, and it was because this wasn't just a ghost biker. Chrissy sometimes assists with filming the episodes, as Josh did, but that's why in these type episodes, when we just do stationary, so sometimes it's not the most flattering shots, or the audio and stuff may be a little bit different. But again, like Christy said, and we do talk about this here in a few minutes, one of our techniques is to actually sit in different cells asking particular questions to see if they'll respond to one of us over the other, or to kind of try to triangulate where the person is, that we're talking to, whether they're closer to you, closer to me, that sort of thing, who they're answering.
Yeah. And this cell in particular was interesting because this was a cell where they would leave inmates. Miranda mentioned in her intro that when the jail was first built, there was no jailer on site at night. And you could be arrested for anything, from spitting on the sidewalk to cussing to murder. And they were all packed in these cells. So when the jailer came back in the next morning, if you lived through the night, kudos to you, right? You get to live another day. But there were many individuals who were killed in here during the night, and this was one of the larger cells that was there, where they held these guys. And there's documented deaths that occurred in this cell. And so what's interesting about this is the EVPs that we captured that night, we heard some of them audibly, but our equipment was picking up very distinct EVPs that were responding to what we were doing, which again is absolutely fascinating when you couple that with all of the equipment that was also going off.
Yeah, and so this scene right here, this actually kind of shows what we were just talking about. I'm holding your camera right there. That way we could, both kind of record each other while I had my camera sitting there stationary. Plus, we had static cameras covering this entire jail. There's evidence on the static cameras that I didn't even release in this episode, that I'll be releasing in little snippets in my behind the static, or beyond the static little episodes that I do. But I was really fascinated by this room because a lot of the responses were intelligently and actually audibly respond. I was really shocked at some of these voices. Some were truly disembodied voices that we did hear. Others were these amazing EVPs that we didn't hear in the moment.
Yeah. And after we'll go through the scene in a minute where we take the guns off, but even prior to that, we captured some things. But after that, to your point, and you pointed it out in the video, I do think they're so intelligent that they realize that we may not be on the up and up because we had those guns, right? Because they would consider us law enforcement. So that was very interesting that you pointed that out. Yeah.
Yeah. Or maybe not even law enforcement, but because there were drug deals and stuff that went on there. And this house, this building was used as a dumping ground for bodies at one point. Who's to say that they didn't think that we were somebody, even less on the up and up,
Right. Exactly.
Especially based on some of the EVPs that was captured that we didn't actually, or that I didn't actually show, that you caught in your video.
Yeah. And to your point earlier, yes, we did put out two different videos to this,
Mhm.
but we both highlighted very distinct evidence. I've got some EVPs that you don't have. You've obviously got some that I don't have. There were two really specific points that we both wanted to highlight, and I think that does a service to both of us, right? And so I'm glad we did it like this, and this was a true collaboration. So yes, we have two different styles on how we film and how we release our evidence. And so the fact that you were catching things that I didn't air, and I caught things that you didn't air, that's to show, I mean, how amazing this location is and the evidence that we captured.
But even to kind of tag on top of that, the evidence that I shared that we both
Mhm.
captured,
Yeah.
to me, you catch something on one camera, that's great. You catch something on one recorder, that's great. But when you can catch something, and we've done this in other episodes and at the jail, whenever you can catch stuff on multiple cameras from multiple angles on multiple tools, I mean,
Mhm.
that just lends credence to what you're doing.
Mhm.
And so I'm glad for the overlap.
Oh, I'm as well. Yeah,
And
and it does, highlight our individual styles as well. Two very distinct styles from one location, which I enjoy.
yeah, and like I said, I've got a point that I wanna touch on that after we're done with this,
Hmm.
and I'd really like to get your thoughts on it as well. But let's
Yeah.
talk about what's going on right now, right here. Refresh my memory. Was this something, that they had said that they will do from time to time, is move a cigarette in your hand? I couldn't
Right. So
remember.
this is the cell that's on the other side of the long cell that we just came out of. And this was the location where a guy named Robert was actually killed for his lunch. They had brought some lunch in and he hadn't eaten it right away. And the other inmates actually ended up killing him because they wanted what was left of his lunch. So there were reports of if you offer him a cigarette that he would either move it or take it. And so we were going to leave one in the cell, and we do it here in a minute. But as I was getting it out right at this location, it felt cooler. And believe me, when it was so hot in there, I felt it right away. And so that's why I held the cigarette in my hand. And it was very weird. You can't see it move on the camera, but it really felt like something was trying to take it out of my hand, which was kind of odd because my hand was cooler, and to me, it just felt like something was trying to act on it, which is why we left it here. Now we had gone to McDonald's on our way over, and so we used the McDonald's bags as a trigger item because the guy was killed for his lunch. So we were like, let's just see if that
Mhm.
triggers anything, and we did get some interesting responses here in this cell.
Yeah, and that's something that I know you as well as, or your team as well as myself like to do are use trigger items in these
Absolutely.
specific location. I mean, you just can't beat it. And we did some interesting trigger items here, which we will kind of allude to here in a few minutes. But we had the food, we had the cigarettes, we had whiskey. I took a porn magazine, and it's interesting. For some reason, that Hustler magazine always it never fails at a jail, and a few other locations. But it's interesting the responses when you start looking at these humanistic urges and sort of the I can't think of my words, but when you're able to kind of test that within the
Mhm.
supernatural realm to see how how those allude to responses.
Oh, absolutely. So to your point, trigger items are a huge thing. And if you can make them really germane to the environment, that is obviously something that we love to do. I kind of wish we would have left him one chicken nugget, but we decided to, kind of devour those on our way out, or on our way over there. But we could have gotten a
Ghost
different,
food.
could have gotten a different response if we would have left him a fry or a nugget. But no,
Well, but
trigger
on the
item.
flip side, we didn't know.
We did not know that story, correct.
Yeah.
We did not know that story. We just pulled the trash out and teased them with the smell, I guess. But yeah, trigger items are just a great way to let the spirits know that you acknowledge them as a human, as the human that they were. And for us, we have been very fortunate at Soul Sisters to come up with some great trigger items that have really interesting responses.
And this is one of those, and I'm kind of watching to see the responses here to see which ones to play out loud. But
Mhm.
this was what we were talking about earlier. So so again, the way this is set up on that second floor, I was sitting in a specific cell by myself with my camera. Dr. Sumner was sitting in her own cell over there, and I like the fact that you can hear us both. We ask the questions very softly, and I like that you could hear them, and we could hear, and I'm not sure because it sounded like what the responses I was getting were responses that were responding to me
Mhm.
there in that cell. I can't remember on your episode if you had any specifically in your area. But I believe I was sitting in the cell with the food, I think.
Yep, you had just sat down in Robert's cell, and so that is where the food and the cigarette is. And then
Yeah.
I was sitting in the one across the way. So now we're
So
back down into the jailer's house. This is where, in 2006, Black Mr. Black
8.
was yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
8, Mr. Black was killed. They just called him Mr. Black. And
Yeah.
we got some very interesting EVPs. Obviously, you didn't highlight them on this one, and I didn't highlight these on mine, but the fact that we were both getting EVPs in this area was incredible.
Mhm. Yeah, and so, we found out this individual did have, I was re-listening to the tour. This individual did have, he loved the women, and, he did have a lot of children around the,
He did.
Trenton area. And so, when he was murdered outside of there, they did end up, thinking they had finished the job, dropped the body to hide it out there in the jail, right there in front of the window, which we'll kind of talk a little bit about that during our
Mhm.
SLS session. And they came back a little, they kept it there. They came back later that night to, or might have been early the next morning. I can't remember, but they did come back, found out that he wasn't actually dead. So they finished off the job. They were going to move the body, was the reason they
Mhm.
came
Yep.
back.
Yep.
So, for a jail to be closed from 1968 up until we investigated it there in 2019, I mean, that's a long time for that building to sit vacant without. I mean, you would have to expect something to happen.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And again, as you can see, this is just a very, very small environment. But to me, it's just the paranormal punch in this location is unbelievable.
And what's interesting about this little lot right here, so we were just kind of going through, we had a lot of time, so we were deploying everything we could. And I love that little mini black light. And the cool thing about that is it is a push button flashlight. Now
Mhm.
that's going to resurface later on in the episode as well. But most of the time the flashlights that we're using, they're the twist top ones.
Mhm.
And so, and actually, I may play some of this one.
Yeah, go for it.
Let me go ahead and get the sound going there.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Now I'm outside the cell at this point. To speak with you and get your story.
And I am not doing the Estes method, just to clear that up. I'm just listening in real time.
Is there a woman in here?
I think we think it says Martha,
Martha.
after listening to it.
Okay. All right. Welcome to the party. Step back, please. Now that we know you're here, please step back from that. Thank you.
Thank you.
To confirm that you're here. Those are tree frogs.
Okay. I'll listen to sound from beeping.
That's a tree frog.
And that was something too, those tree frogs.
To confirm that
You could hear them really loud on that.
It makes me miss home. 1, 2, 3.
I'm going to ask again. Earlier, I got the name Pat. Passion? Is there somebody named Passion in here? Come on in. Is that you, Passion? Come on in here. Normally, I know this cell is pretty crowded, but it seems like there's not a lot of people in here tonight. Why don't you come in here and sit down with me? I may even have some food or some whiskey. If you could give us a sign that you're in here, that would help us. I mean, when we got here, you were touching our hair, our pockets.
Okay, we hear you. Thank you.
What's that?
And I just have to say, when you're listening in real time with headphones,
Come on
it
down.
becomes just undistinguishable. And those were noise canceling headphones as well.
Come on, guys.
And the movement was all
What
night.
can we do to get some action in here? And what more could you want? You got porn, you got cigarettes. I don't know what more else you could want.
All right. Thank you. Come on in. Yep.
And it was the same voice.
We acknowledge that, and that took a lot of energy and bravery on your part, so thank you.
That's the second jail this season that I've had my name called.
You want us to come out? We can come out there and party with you. Or we can leave all this stuff in here for you if you want to be alone.
I sort of wonder if they don't think we're cops with our guns.
Well, you know, we can leave it like this over here.
Yeah.
So we know if what we're up here, so we know nobody's gonna get it.
Okay, so I do want to pause that just for a second because I did see a question here about this where we're talking about the guns. So this is a great question, Mitchell. It says you put your guns in another place at one point. How long were you without your guns? I was concerned.
Well, thank you for the concern. Yeah. We weren't without him very long. So like I said, this is a very small jail. So right behind this wall, you see the wall where Miranda's at right now, right behind that was another cell. And that's the only 2 cells on this side of the building. And the stairs are right outside of that. And so and you can hear me say, let's put them in that cell because we have control. Obviously we have control of the whole place, but we have a lot of control over that cell. So if somebody were to come up the stairs, we could easily access that cell. But we were really we only put the guns down there for a brief time. And then we just put them back on once we kind of established that we weren't. So she came back into the room. I stayed outside of the room where I was, but I had a line of sight to them the entire time.
Yeah, because it again, it's something about literally a trigger item. We wanted to see if that was the case. There's been What made me kind of think of it was there was one other instance where I did find that my pistol was a trigger item. And then also on this trip, if you watched last season, whenever I highlighted the Ma Barker house, I mean, being the gangster house, I actually ended up using my travel money as well as my gun as a trigger item in that location. And it was crazy how it changed things. So these
So yeah,
these
and
spirits,
so
they're intelligent.
exactly. So we don't want to seem cavalier, like, we were just kind of throwing our guns around. That's not what it was. I mean, we had complete control over them the entire time, and we were maybe only without them for 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and play that because the response was pretty wild, and then how it did change while we were getting some interesting disembodied voices and voices on here. We started getting more physical reaction, and they started showing themselves after we actually acknowledged this and showed. So let me go ahead and start that back.
Actually, let's leave it in the cell with the food because nobody can get access.
We're going to, we realize that might be a thing. You guys aren't stupid. We are armed. But it's just because we're trying to protect ourselves. We're not cops. So we're going to take these, put these in another location. Not keen on moving up weapon.
That was a really cool capture. I think you highlighted that as well.
I did. That's one of like two that we've highlighted together. If you want us to leave this room, tell us. And we'll step out and leave you alone with Bridget. Okay, thank you. Got it. All right, we're gonna step out. Perfect. Thank you. All right, we're gonna step out, just for you, we're gonna step out. You can come in here and play with any of this equipment, okay? We're gonna give you 5 minutes with Bridget.
And Bridget is one of the girls in the magazine, in case anyone wonders who that is.
I'm gonna step right in here.
And this also shows our orientation where we went. So we left my camera rolling.
And
this was
pause it a minute. Pause it just a second.
5 minutes, and then we'll come back out and speak with you.
Okay, so right where the REM pod is, to the right of that is the room where Miranda just came out of. This wall here on the corner, that's the wall where the stairs are. So just if you went just around this wall, then the stairs are going to go down. And then there's a cell to the left. Now, this whole sequence is very interesting, and I think I highlighted a little bit more on mine. But the cell that we actually popped into to give them 5 minutes alone, this cell was where a man was strangled to death. His name was Sam. And so we get some very interesting EVP or REM pod responses when we start going down this route of questioning with Sam. So I think the one in my video, I think it almost lasts 5 to 6 minutes of the back and forth that we get with this. And we're going to highlight something else here. You're going to highlight something else here in a little bit about that same cell.
And I think what's also interesting about this was the whole time we were in that large cell, even from when it was daylight until now, there was stuff going on out in the hall. I didn't have the sound on at that time, but as we were inside of there, Christy had seen a shadow figure down the hall, and I had seen right outside the door in the cell across the hall, I had seen a shadow pass the window. So we were getting a lot of activity out there in the hall. So it's interesting to note that we had a REM pod in the big main room we were in, and then the REM pod out here in the hall. And just where this activity was taking place is interesting to note, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're going to close that door because
And when I say there's no
Okay,
power in this
acknowledge that.
building, there
Thank
is
you.
no power in this
We told you
building.
we'd step out, so we're out.
We literally had to hook up
You're
to a
welcome.
post to charge our equipment.
Okay, you are the man in know is black. Can you light up that light green again, please?
Okay, if you are the man they know is black, can you light up that light to green again, please? Okay, if you're the guy they call Sam, can you light up that light to green again, please? Okay, cool. Groovy, thank you, Sam. We appreciate that.
Can you light it up to green again, Sam? If you were killed in this jail.
Can you light it up to green again, Sam, if you were killed in this jail? If you were killed in this jail, Sam, can you light it up to green again? Okay. Thank you. Okay, we acknowledge that. Thank you, Sam.
Just great
If you
REM pod
were
activity.
murdered- Thank you. Sam, if you were murdered in this jail by another... Yes, sir. Yes, sir, we got it. If you were murdered in the jail by another prisoner, can you light it up to green for me, please? Can you do that for me, Sam? Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Sam. Thank you.
Now, I just want to pause that for just a moment and address something that was mentioned last night in the comments. So I believe Janet asked this question. So as you can see, just from that scene we just played, there were some bugs that were flying around.
Mhm.
And if you saw all my B-roll, you would have seen the giant quarter-size spider, or not quarter, $half size spiders that were down there. And
We grow them big in Florida.
you could hear them walking on the walls. It was crazy cool. But anyways, so there were bugs flying around in this area, and the question was asked last night: can bugs set off paranormal equipment? And so that actually sparked a really interesting conversation because when I replied to that, I said, it's a possibility that that is something that we take into account when we're looking at our evidence and this and that. So, I want to just clarify on my response to that is that I wasn't talking about the REM pods and the tools in this. I was talking about paranormal tools in general. That's where we get a lot of orbs from, and my thought in explaining that was, a lot of the time they set off motion detectors, they set off motion censored cameras. If a bug, a bird, or something really big comes near a REM pod, because it is a proximity field, it could. But those little fluttering moths, I've never, in my experience, ever had one set a REM pod off.
No.
Plus, those were flying around the light that I had sitting there by the camera.
There'd be no reason for them to fly really around the REM pod.
No. So, but that is something that, we definitely take into account when we're looking at atmospheric changes. But that is something that definitely causes false positives when it comes to photos as well as comes to video, because these bugs, they do create, what a lot of people like to think are spirit orbs, but, aren't. So I just wanted to make sure to, mention that, because that was a really cool question in the comments there last night that sparked a really interesting conversation about what can be set off. So
They are, Janet.
Oh, I gotta say, I did not show. I'm gonna put my B-roll somewhere because I was hearing these spiders climb. That spiders, snakes, they don't bother me, but I was hearing them on the walls, and I caught some great B-roll. I just couldn't figure out where to place it in this episode because, I mean, that one, it
It was
grows
ma
every time. It was,
yeah, it was big. The dinner plate.
and the nests that covered everything in
There's a
there.
nest of them. Yeah.
I mean, it was like the cotton candy cocoons in Killer Clowns from Outer Space. So let me go ahead and start that back.
I'm gonna say a couple numbers. When I get close to the number of how many spirits are here, you light it up for each one. Are there 5 spirits in this jail, Sam? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Are there more than 5 spirits in this jail? You light it up for green. Sam, did you come in here? Is that you, brother, Miranda's leg?
Again, Miranda, I didn't feel anything touch me that night, but there was twice. This one time here where we were in that cell and something grabbed you because you were standing in the back of the cell. And then later on, we'll highlight that here in just a minute. But they definitely were physical with you that night.
Yeah, and even before we started the investigation. I thought you got tugged on your pocket in the beginning.
Did I at Gilchrist? I don't remember.
It may have been me. I don't know. But
yes, Janet, the skeleton was used for a haunted house as well as the mannequins. And I'll just say, if you own a location, don't put a mannequin or a skeleton in there.
Okay. This was interesting.
Yeah,
I hope
this.
it made sense. Yeah,
Pause this because we gotta explain this.
I hope it made sense how I put it in there, because I put it in order of how the investigation went down. And go ahead.
No, I think you did. This is kind of interesting. Again, 127 degrees in this building. So they would routinely walk outside just to get a little bit of fresh air because there was no movement. And as you see in a minute, it's extremely dark. And so all of our equipment was by that main door. And this is just a fascinating capture because we had had some flashlight activity prior, but this is really neat how this happens.
Yeah, because essentially, it's the black light that we talked about earlier. And this black light was, one of my cases that I have has a clear plastic top on it.
Like a toolbox, like a tackle box.
Yeah, yeah. And so this is a push button. And so the only other time I've ever seen this happen was, my friend Tiffany White's laser grid will be manipulated at Brushy like that. So being a push button was wild. And the fact we were taking the break right there by the door. And so at that door, you could see our equipment. We also had a laser grid that was facing back. And so I'm going to go ahead and just the sequence of events, I think is pretty awesome how this went.
Right. So just so you know, Miranda had taken that black light and put it back inside her tackle box.
So we gave it some time, and we actually had a really cool session. We saw a shadow figure. Flash on and off. I see you playing with
Now, the reason it's on when this is on right here is because we're sitting there talking and we look in and it's like the lights on. So we grab the camera.
Yeah, we didn't have the camera running at that point.
Can you walk towards me?
You turn that blue
See, it's going on and off.
and see that push button on the end. Thank you. It's on. Turn it off on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
I normally
turn the light
don't
off. Step
like
away
to
from it.
showcase when
Please step
when
back from
it's
it, okay?
all black and you can't see something in
Thank
the
you.
background, but it couldn't
The-
be helped in this
Yeah,
situation.
yeah. So again, pause it real quick. So as Miranda said, this is all happening in that sequence event. So you have her little black light going on and off, and we're looking down this main hallway. We can see that laser grid, those green dots that were on the right. And so we actually see a shadow figure move from right to left. And then we ask it to move back, to go back to left to right. And that's what we picked up on this, which again, this is only the second time that I had captured a shadow figure on the static cam.
Yeah, and actually, if I'm remembering correctly, you saw it go
I did. I
across
saw it
there.
and I said a 4-letter word.
And
And
you
then, yeah, I'd seen it.
Yeah, and so, of course, I was doing something right there beside you. We were outside of the building, and this is literally this is filming it from the doorway. So there's nobody in there
We're outside
to
the building, yeah.
yeah, we were completely outside. So Chris saw it pass, and of course I come running over and I'm standing there, and we were very fortunate enough when asked if it would come back that it literally came back.
And moved right back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so then that becomes the moment this happens during the investigation, you're marking the time down, and then you're just hoping that your static cameras were able to capture what your eyes saw because it's amazing whenever you actually see it in real life. So let me go
Mhm.
ahead and
Yeah.
start that. And that's actually my equipment bag right over there to the left, right in front of that little hole.
So there it goes
Wow.
from right to left. And we ask it to, I'd seen that. And then I said, can you move back left to right? And there it
Wow.
goes. Yeah. And if you notice, at the same time this is going off, we had just had, as Miranda said, her equipment's over here on the left. That's where the black light was going off. And upstairs, you could hear the REM pod going off.
We're gonna try a little session here. You can straighten these rods for me.
It is, Donald. Yeah. Starting to feel weird in here again.
Yes, I just got a.
This area felt weird. Now, I didn't show very much. I really didn't show hardly any of this rod session.
On the street.
It wasn't
just
anything
outside of here.
exceptionally
So it's
compelling, but what was
outside of- just on
going
the
on
streets
around
outside
me,
Mhm.
which I can't remember if I need to play audio on this part or not.
there. Yes.
I know you captured the one EVP. I can't remember on the
I
next
love
one.
This area.
I don't either.
For some reason.
I think we're exposed here.
It's kind of how it feels. Okay. Do we need to leave this room now?
The strongest yes you've gotten.
Yeah.
Very
All
strong.
right, thanks, Bob.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
We're out.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's exposed. I don't know. But I don't get good feelings in this room. Haven't
No.
since the beginning.
No, well, I just don't like the windows.
Yeah.
I mean, it's because the outside, anybody from the outside can come up in here.
I mean, this was almost like Urbex.
Yeah. So see these windows right here. There's no glass in them, and they're literally about 2 or 3 feet off the ground.
I
So
said we go upstairs into the room with the lunch guy.
And bodies have been dropped in there.
yeah,
So
and killed and re-killed.
Hey, Sam.
Sam was very responsive.
All right, step back a little bit. All right.
Thank you.
Sam, if you're out there, can you light up 2 of those lights?
Tennessee accent.
Perfect. Thank
Got my
you.
long eyes.
It's lights.
Sam, are there 5 spirits in this jail? Light up the green lights if there are 5 spirits in this jail. Are there more than 5? Oh.
Oh, the flashlight in the.
Flashlight on.
Wow.
That was the
Thanks,
first
Sarah.
flashlight activity we got in there, except for that one
Whoever
time in the
there
main
with
room.
the flashlight, please step back and turn it off. Thank you.
Thank you. Whoa, whoa, look at my camera. My camera. I'm
And
scrolling.
then
Did you see that?
it's like it didn't want us to see something.
Hmm.
It just turned. Now we're going to turn this back. Was there something you didn't want us to see? If there's something you didn't want us to see, walk up and touch that red light.
Flashlight came on.
Yep, the flashlight's on.
Step back from the flashlight, please.
That's the main room, or the big
turn it
room,
off.
right?
Hmm. Yeah.
What I thought.
Thank you.
Because we pretty well left all our equipment where we put it or out
Can you
originally.
turn the
We never
flashlight on
moved
again,
anything.
please?
Right.
On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Please turn the flashlight on. All right, Sam. Can you touch that red light again? If you want us to leave this cell.
Just letting you all know, we don't have much time left tonight. I've got to go home to Tennessee tomorrow. Thank you. That's on bright too. So we're wanting some real action before we have to leave. Can you touch that red light? Now, I just want to note, we've not had any flashlight activity in that room, period.
And we also, in reviewing the static cam footage, we didn't have any when we were doing the other areas.
Hmm. And what's interesting is that flashlight was sitting next to your REM pod.
Yes.
So, all right. So this is probably one of the most interesting SLS captures that I've ever been involved with. And Miranda does a good job of setting this up, but this is back in the jailer's cottage where Black was killed, and he was shot and killed. And so we had actually seen some things visually in there earlier, which is why Miranda had gotten the SLS camera out.
Exactly. So we'll go ahead, play this, and then we may pause it after.
Mm-hmm.
Whoops.
Okay, I see we start back there.
Yep.
In Black.
Just gonna kind of march along.
There should be nothing in here giving off a signature.
No. Not a thing, not a thing. All right.
What's that board on the ground?
Something I saw a second ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do just want to say right quick, once this gets lined up here, that so, you know, since you can't see behind the SLS camera what's there, what this is actually pointing at is right there where Black's body was found. And so there's 2 walls there. One leads to the doorway going upstairs. The other it's right there in front of the window, correct?
No, so we're actually looking in. So there's no stairway here.
Right.
The pink is the far back room. So this right here is the doorway where it turns gray. So that would be the doorway, and then this gray part is the other wall. So the window would have been over here on the right.
Right. And
Yeah.
so, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that's kind of showing it's actually right there in that same area where I was talking when I was kind of breaking down the location.
Right. And it just behind that where you're breaking down the location, but this is where the spot where you just did the dowsing rods and we got the yes to leave. Now, what's
Yes.
also interesting about this is when Miranda plays this, she's not really moving.
No.
It's the images on the screen that are moving, which is pretty compelling because they're moving as we're talking. Miranda's not moving. It's the images on the screen.
And that's the important thing also to note about an SLS camera, because these can give off false positives if they're not, if it's not done correctly. It's best with an SLS camera to cut down on that, to not move it, to keep it as stationary as possible. That's why
Right.
throughout this video, when I am moving throughout the rooms, you'll see me stop to try to let it calibrate and then let it continue to do its reading. We try to keep everything as still as possible.
Right. So these two figures go through their
Yeah.
sequence and then they disappear.
You guys standing by the door there?
And no,
Correct,
Donald,
Donald.
there's nothing.
Correct.
Just ask if I heard that. I didn't say a thing.
And I was hearing stuff through my noise cancelers.
What you guys doing over there?
So that's me moving around Miranda, trying to get the better angle because I couldn't see if the camera was actually
Open the
catching.
doors.
Miranda's not moving.
Are you two of the people who killed Black?
Can you please step forward? And if you watch the little guy on the left, it looks like he just kind of pulls a gun out.
It's like is it cocking a gun? I don't know.
It's definitely pointing something. The one on the left, right?
Yeah.
And the yellow.
And then bang.
What the
Boom.
hell?
And then
Wow.
the way
Boom.
that the one on the right
Okay.
was, it'd be interesting to know where he was shot, because
Are you
up in the
here,
top,
Black?
like he
Mhm.
literally lurches back.
Yeah. Okay. So now we're moving on to the next cell. We've moved into it. Yeah. You've clipped to another scene. All right. Go ahead.
Yeah, because we had felt like we wanted, and I was probably talking when that was playing, but we were wanting to see if by chance we felt like they wanted us to follow them.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Amen, Donald. Holy crap is right.
That's coming from the jail.
Yeah. Come on in here. I'm hearing loud footsteps.
And that's a good point,
Somewhere
Vicky.
just went through there,
It made
went
me
up the
wonder
stairs.
if, of course, we were getting REM pod activity on the second floor. But it makes me wonder if this could have potentially been a residual reenactment of the murder,
Yep.
or if it could have been
Behind us.
an intelligent response showing us what had happened. So
There's a
it'd be
light
interesting
up there.
to go back and try another SLS session at this spot.
Mhm.
Alright. So the guys that were over by the door are no longer by the door.
I see we go. Follow this thing.
Okay. Okay, we're gonna take this little hall right quick. We're gonna see where you went to, buddy. Mannequin scared, right?
Again, location owners. Nix the mannequins.
Note to viewers, why put a mannequin in a haunted location?
Good job, past self.
I actually cut it out, but this was mapping in one of the cells, the little skeleton man.
What's going? All right, Sam. If you're still up here.
Good question, Donald.
down there, Sam.
My understanding was that it did happen that evening, or not that in the evening or around nighttime, because they came.
But we
back
don't know
and-
the exact date.
And really, with this sequence, I was just trying to kind of quickly breeze through and show that we went to all of the different cells to try to find the
Can you come
individual.
through right here and show yourself and point us in the direction of which room to go in.
Now, I kind of wish you'd
You want us
had.
to go to the room on the left or the right?
Oh, let it play for a
Can
minute.
you show yourself? Or light up the REM pod? If you want us to go into the big room, light up the REM pod, or light up the little red light. Green.
Okay, now pause it.
Excuse me.
Okay, so I kind of wish we would have expounded on this a little bit more on yours. So this is the cell where the guy Sam was strangled. And if you watch my video, I've gone longer into that whole REM pod session where we asked how he was killed. So we go through a list of things. Were you stabbed? Nothing happened. Were you shot? Nothing happened. And I said, were you strangled? And the REM pod goes off. So that's highlighted in mine. So it's interesting that at this point we're in front of the exact same cell where he had just told us that he'd been strangled, and Miranda felt like she's being choked, and we go on a little bit further and we shine a flashlight on it, and you can see that there is red marks on her. And I like I said, I kind of wish we'd have gone that route too, but it is very interesting that she starts to feel like something's around her neck, and this is where he was strangled.
Yeah, I literally, as I was walking, felt like I walked into something. And I do actually have a little more footage of my neck where whenever we did that I didn't add to that or didn't put all of that on there. And then also if you're not wearing headphones, it may be a little bit harder to hear, but the voice that's captured right after I get choked, I mean, you can hear with headphones, you can hear a distressedness in the whisper of, and I feel like the words are very pertinent to the what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
Something choked me. Trust me, I don't like to be in a unflattering position like that on camera. So.
Okay.
I felt like something just came at me and just choked me. Did you hear something? All right. Where did you go? You're gonna go in here. Oh, the flashlight's on. Can you turn that flashlight off for us?
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's good.
Can you turn that flashlight on? Can you flash it like this?
And of course, this session here was quite a bit longer than what I showed. It was just extremely quiet.
Yeah, this is literally an hour before we were starting to pack up.
Yeah.
Where did you go? We saw you. Couldn't anything in here.
No, just hot. So hot in this room.
See if I can get anything behind you. Can you come up behind Christy? And show yourself.
Sam, can you come up behind me, please? I'm giving you permission to come up behind me.
Way to step in there.
Can somebody
Got to take one for the team.
That red light?
I was glistening there. God, it was so hot.
It was about 207 degrees in that building.
Dying up in here. Oh, he's back. You were standing out there watching us, weren't you? There he's gone. He's standing right there by the door.
I don't like this sound.
You don't like that sound?
You sit over there.
All right, inmates. Doors closed.
Thank you, Vicky. Yeah,
And
it was uncomfortable for sure.
Lights out.
I want you to call out. Call out your numbers. All right, you guys downstairs. We're coming.
What is that sound? Do you hear a sound?
It's Sally snoring behind me.
Oh, okay.
It's like a
I thought it
little
was
freight
something-
train. No, she's snoring like a freight train behind
I
me.
thought it was something on my camera. I just had to stop it because I'm sitting there and I'm like, what? What is this?
Yeah, no.
What did
no,
I
she's-
miss?
She's sucking in air out down here.
I thought I first thought, what happened to my audio? What sounds did I miss? Okay, because it's just
It's Sally. Sorry, everybody. It's Sally snoring.
Who's that on the floor?
Okay, real quick. Pause this real quick so we can get an orientation. Okay, so if you look at her SLS screen, the little pink there, the little blob, and then the pink line, that's the outside door. And so to the right is where all of our equipment is, and is where her black light had started going off. So we're back downstairs now. So it's interesting that we're in the location where the black light had been going off.
yeah. So essentially, whenever we saw that shadow figure, we were standing
Standing.
out there where that pink area, not the little blob, but the big pink area right there on the little outside part. And of course, there's the little hole there that's on that other side. And it's interesting. I was talking to someone else that said that when the equipment or when they've caught stuff on their camera with when they're around their equipment, they appear smaller.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and let's see.
Sorry, Donald. We just have a really loud cat.
She has apnea.
Are you the shadow figure we've been seeing? Messing with my blue light. It's time for you to get in bed, inmate. Yeah. Someone was over there by the blue light.
All right, it's time.
Go get in your cell, please. Go on, inmate.
Looks like he's working with
I
it.
saw you. Did you go get in your cell?
Thank you. Oop.
And you can't go home in our equipment. Oh.
And then of course battery drain.
Back away.
Go get in your cell, inmate. God. Wow. God. If he went in that hole. Of course he went in the hole. All the scary things go in the hole.
I stand by my statement.
Sounds as though we saw that shadow.
You were on it with the commentary that night.
I'm a comedian. What can I say?
Yeah, let's step back out here. It's like Monday's hot. I can't see.
Silly.
Okay. If this thing comes back out, it's gonna be freaking awesome. They've been consistent with 2.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then of course the battery died.
Perfect.
Which I thought was a good time
A
to
fitting end.
Yeah, it's a fitting end.
So yeah, like I said, this location was just phenomenal. I go back every now and then and watch my video and just kind of remember what we'd gone through, and it was just incredible. Like I said, everything was lining up with everything else, just validating every other piece of equipment. And like I said, I know Henry Lee has done a great job fixing it up and really cleaning it out. I have not seen it since he's taken ownership of it, but I know he's put in a lot of work at this location.
Yeah, and I do just want to draw attention here. We've been, excuse me, addressing and talking to Donald. We were at his location last week's episode. There at the old Atala County Jail, and so done just an amazing job with that. And definitely, folks, go back, and if you missed that episode, go back and check it out, and check out the behind the screens as well, where we really break down that location. I know you've investigated that location as well and highlighted in yours. So which
kind of how we do this with our collaborations.
Exactly, which kind of leads me to the topic I kind of wanted to address briefly, based on a comment that that I had on my last video. This season we were highlighting jails, and I did highlight 2 older investigations. Now, these, when I say older, they were ones that I have not highlighted out there. But, you know, when you do collaborations or when you work closely with other investigators, they're going to release videos as well. And so when you and I, we kind of have this agreement, maybe unspoken agreement or whatever, that whenever, if we do a collaboration or if we investigate, you know, we did this with the Grand Old Lady, we always put a time and separation between when we release our respective videos, whether it be a collaboration or whether it be in a location that we've investigated close to the same time.
Correct.
We always put out, there's always time and space in between, just because so we're not technically doubling up and that
Correct.
sort of thing. You know, so I mean, I was kind of honestly a little taken aback by the comment because these locations that I was highlighting, even though they were locations that I did an investigation in 2019 as well as in 2020, it was really positioned, comment was really positioned in a way that was essentially, why am I not putting new stuff out? You know, is how I took that. So, you know, I kind of wanted to address that in the sense, because of the episodes we've highlighted, the Fentress County Jail that's not been investigated before, that was put out in the first episode and was a very recent investigation that we did a few months ago. The old Attala County Jail, that one was one that I did in 2020 and just hadn't put out because I was saving it because I had other investigations that had taken priority at that time, you know, to release in the order. And then this one, which was done in 2019, I wanted to put it out now, again, because I was saving these for a time because I knew that I was going to highlight old jails. You know, this is new evidence. This isn't a repeat. In last week's episode, I did highlight a live. As a lot of you know that's followed the show from the beginning, I used to do a lot of lives when I would go to these locations, but this actually created a unique opportunity for me to add a little bit of flavor to the investigation. I was there for 7 or 8 hours that night. I did a live for 45 minutes, and it was a very active live. Well, a lot of the time when you're doing those, you don't catch the things that happen in the moment. And so this created a good opportunity to add to the investigation and to also be able to caption those events that happened in the live. So I do apologize if this was redundant to some people during, you know, their viewing process. However, I've just got to say, you know, my channel is not monetized. I don't get paid. In fact, when I do these locations, the money goes to these locations to aid in restoration and historic preservation. So this is, my travels and such is out of my pocket. My documentation or my documentary style for putting these out is self-funded, self-produced, self-edited, and self-promoted. So, you know, this isn't something, and because I did start as a content creator, I did start a new business last year with Dr. Sumner, which, you know, we are very thankful for these locations, the people who come and investigate these locations, because they're who keep our lights on. And, you know, so not having the time necessarily to go and investigate brand new locations and having to, you know, dip back into the archives of locations I've not highlighted is something that, you know, I'm excited to do, to put this out. And so because of the purse strings, because of the time, and because of, you know, the theme of the episode, I did have to dip back into the episode. So if, you know, I will just say, for anyone that finds this redundant or not interesting because they are older investigations or because they were highlighted during another co-investigator's location, or because I did highlight it in a live and ad, I do apologize for that. However, there are lots of other great channels and stuff out there that, if that is not to your fitting, I suggest you check those out.
Yeah, so I
And
mean, yeah, and she's doing a great job, y'all. What she's trying to say is the way Miranda does her seasons is obviously she does them all in October. That means she has a bank of locations that she has investigated outside of the month of October. And so a couple of years ago, she's decided that she was going to do themes. Haunted houses was last year, haunted jails was this year. She was fortunate enough that she could go back into her archives and highlight some of these investigations. Yes, they were highlighted on our channel, on Soul Sisters channel, but that does not mean that it is a copycat episode. We did collaborate, and that's the reason why I'm highlighted in hers and she's highlighted in mine. But Miranda released some great evidence last night that I had no intention, or I didn't even know she had captured until I watched the episode last night. And so what you need to realize is you just need to show a little bit of grace with what she's doing. To her point, everything that we do is self-funded. We're trying to put out great content, which will entertain, but also educate about some of these locations. So a little bit of grace would be appreciated in some of these instances. I've got investigations that I did 3 years ago that I haven't highlighted yet that will be highlighted in future episodes. Miranda has the same thing. And that's just kind of how we roll. So
Yeah.
again, just a little bit of grace would be appreciated.
Oh, and thank you. I do appreciate that. Like I said, I don't mean to go off. I'd never like to do anything negative on the show because the people who watch, the people who comment, it's appreciated. It is tough as a content creator in some instances. And, when you do something that, again, I have to stress the self-funded nature. And when I mentioned that about the Harley event, that's not something I even got paid for. That is how I fund this, is through the sale of my Ghost Biker t-shirts, sweatshirts, my drawings that I put out. That's how I fund this. And, it just, when you're putting content out for consumption and, I've said
It's tough. Yeah, no, it is tough, y'all. It is. We've been trying to run this business, and it is interesting because Miranda and I are great friends, and we do have this business together. She is Ghost Biker. I am Soul Sisters. We are two separate entities. However, I've been fortunate enough to help her film on some of her things, and that's just the nature of our relationship. That doesn't mean it's a Soul Sisters video. It means that Christy is helping my friend Miranda video for her episodes, and that's all that is. When we do these collaboration investigations, of course, we're going to take the opportunity to both make an episode out of it. Gilchrist County Jail, Atala County Jail. I mean, even though we didn't investigate those together, we've got two separate episodes on that. So again, it's just it is hard. We understand it is hard because we do have a lot of things in partnership and lockstep, but this is different. And please just kind of treat them as such.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And thank you for letting me address that. That's not something that I really wanted to go off on this, but I kind of really felt like saying something about it because with all this, it's a lot of work to not only do the investigations, to plan the story, to actually research the investigation, and then go through all the different evidence and then put it out together. So it's like I said, there's a lot of content out there, and that's why I like putting these shows together. The Ghost Biker Garage, the behind the screens, having guests on, because these content creators put their heart and soul and their finances into this. And so when I can have them on to introduce my amazing friends and audience that's on here to these other content creators, giving them things to take in, that's great motivation for a content creator. When you comment, when you like, when you share. I had so many people reach out last night saying how much they enjoyed the episode and, just talking about this stuff. And so, that's why I love doing that and giving other people the opportunity to be able to watch these episodes. And when, again, I think as a consumer, sometimes it's kind of lost how much work goes into some of this stuff. And I'm not just talking about myself. I'm talking about all in general. You said it best. People just need to show some grace, because while you don't mess with somebody's programs, you just kind of have to realize we're not a network TV station. Although it's a great compliment that people think you are, you know.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. So,
um,
but listen, that was a great episode. I'm very proud of you and putting that together, and it was an honor to collaborate with you on that. But y'all, listen, the old Gilchrist County Jail. I think it's on hiatus right this very second. Henry Lee is working through a few things, but as soon as that is open for investigations again, you need to book it, because that place, as you can see on Miranda's video, it did not disappoint. And I've been there, not just when we investigated. I went back a couple other times afterwards, and again, did not disappoint. So it's a great location, much like the Atala County Jail.
have you put? Forgive me for not remembering, but have you put a video out with any of those other trips?
No, not yet. I still, to your, like you, I've got so many things that are, so many investigations. I think I've got 5 other investigations in the hopper that I need to get on and work on.
It's a great problem to have, especially especially when you're in a situation like we are with trying to run a business and remodel a house and move and all that good stuff. It's a good problem to have those, especially when we had 2020 and 2021 happen,
Mm-hmm.
where people couldn't go and investigate as much as they would like to. So,
Right.
So definitely, guys, go and check out Soul Sisters video on this. You'll see some things that I didn't put out. You'll see some things that I did. But regardless, you're going to see a great video and a great location being spotlighted. So definitely go on, check that out. And where can people find, if they don't already know? I know a lot of people here know you. So where can they find yours?
Oh, thank you for that. It's www.soulsistersparanormal.com. Also on our YouTube channel under Soul Sisters Paranormal.
Perfect. And definitely, as we mentioned at the top of the show, that go check out www.historicscottcojail.com and check on some of the cool events we've got coming up, because not only do we have this lantern tour, but we've got the rest of the month jam-packed with guided ghost hunts, and I think we've got 2 or 3 of those over the Halloween weekend.
Yes, we've got 3 of those. Guided ghost hunts, ghost walks. The escape room is still open for slots. So we've got a lot of stuff left.
Yeah, you
before the end of the
can
month.
not just watch our episodes, but come investigate with us live and live in color there at, the jail with some of our tools. Bring your own tools, talk to some of our resident spirits, and 3 hours of, good fun of trying to establish communication. That's coming up. I think we've got a couple haunted history walks as well, and flashlight tours throughout the end of the month. And
we've got a really cool team coming in on the 29th. Excited to see them again.
Yes. And then we'll also be having, we'll be putting our dates out for the escape room, flashlight tours, guided ghost hunts in November. We are climate controlled there at the jail. So, it doesn't matter if it's cold or hot, you can come in and have a good experience. And then we also have a few dates left for the remainder of the year for private paranormal investigations there. 2 more episodes of Ghost Biker left, and I guarantee you this is something you have not seen before. Coming up in the next 2 weeks, we'll be wrapping up this amazing season 5. So again, thank you guys so much for the time you've spent with us, for your sharing, for your comments, and for just being the amazing supporters that you are.
Absolutely.
And then anything else to add? I feel like I'm missing something because there's so much going on.
No, Sally says to tell everybody good night. She's already asleep, snoring.
All right. Well, on that note, good night, everyone. And
good night, everybody. Thank you so much.